Welcome back. Another video, predictions video for the NFL. I've done a few on the channel already. If you haven't seen them, check them out after this. But obviously you know already who we're doing today. The Lions, the Vikings, the Bears, and the Packers. It's the NFC North. And I'm quite excited about this one because of one team in particular, which we'll get to. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I'm quite excited about one team in this division. And if you don't know how these videos work, basically I just sort of go over what my outlook is for each team, give them a record in terms of my prediction, and of course look at the key players, the contributing players to these great teams, and even the teams that I think are going to finish, last and third in each division. But without further ado, let's just get stuck in. So probably to not many people's surprise, I've got the Bears finishing last. And a big reason for this is I just think that they're probably 1, maybe 2 years off it. They're quite a young team. They've been sort of building over the last couple of years, obviously through Justin Fields, their quarterback, but obviously getting that massive package for the number 1 pick last year. Carolina throwing absolutely everything at it to get Bryce Young. They got DJ Moore, which I really like that addition. That's one key player that we'll talk about now because I think he's a great player in this sort of system. There's a lot of question marks around Justin Fields and his throwing ability. Obviously, we've seen plenty of times how good of a runner he is, but his throwing ability is sort of in question. And I think DJ Moore can really help him in terms of this is a guy that average depth of target might not be amazing, but DJ Moore can really make plays and get that yard after catch work for Justin Fields to, sort of make that performance look a little bit better than it might be. But across the board, it's just that sort of lack of depth and just the lack of star power, I think, particularly on the defense. The defense is a big area for the Bears. They conceded a lot of points last season, and I just don't see it getting much better this season. I do see them improving. Obviously, they finished with the worst record in football. I do see them getting a few more wins this time out. The defense is a big reason, and obviously they lost Roquan Smith last season. They've replaced him with Tremaine Edmonds, which is great from the Bills. I think that's a great pickup, but I don't think it's going to necessarily be team defining and really boost them all too much this season. They do have a young player on the defense that I've talked about a number of times in the past, and that's safety Jaquan Brisker. I absolutely love this bloke, the way he plays, the physicality, just the whole package he brings. It's the perfect safety for me because he can play that traditional safety role, but he can also creep up to the line and play in blitz packages, attack the quarterback because he's so quick and he's just a great tackler. So I absolutely love him and very excited to see what he does in year 2. And that brings me to the record for the Bears this season. As I mentioned, I think they will be better in terms of their record compared to last season. I mean, there's not much room for them to be worse, but I think it'll be a 6-win season for the Bears. I think they'll grab a couple more wins. They're obviously only 3-win year last season. I think they'll grab a couple more wins, but ultimately it's still at the bottom of this division for the time being. And in third, I do have the Green Bay Packers, who of late have been garnering a lot more attention in terms of a positive light. A lot of people seem to be going up on the Packers, and more recently, I don't know if this is true or if it's just sort of generally speaking, the Lions have sort of been petering down in terms of the hype, which is not I can understand to some extent for the Packers, but I still just don't see them jumping the Vikings, who are obviously unreal last season. They had a phenomenal year, who we'll obviously get to, and then I'm pretty high on the Lions this year. So the Packers are sort of just going to be that middle of the road type team like last year. I think record-wise, I'll just get it right off the bat. They finished 8-9 last season. I think it will be the exact same record this season. Obviously not going to be the exact same team because there's a big change in the biggest position of all, quarterback. Jordan Love under center going into this season. Obviously Aaron Rodgers to the Jets, so big changes there. And so I think Jordan Love will be serviceable enough to obviously get them back to that same 8 wins. I don't think he'll set the world alight, but I also don't think you'll see him after this season and be like, the Green Bay Packers need a new quarterback. I think he'll be good enough to sort of run this offense. And mind you, this is an offense that's quite young. In terms of their passing talent, as in the receivers, it's a very young core. Obviously, Christian Watson, he exploded in the second half of last season, but there's a lot of other question marks. You got Romeo Dobbs, didn't really get going last season. You thought he would be the one. I mean, a lot of people thought he would be the one. Then Christian Watson popped up. And then Luke Musgrave could be absolutely anything. A lot of hype around him. I've got him in one of my fantasy teams, so I'm fingers crossed he hits maybe later on in the season. I can maybe start playing him. But a lot of young talent on this offense, including obviously the quarterback as well. And so I think for Green Bay to make some noise this season, a lot of it's going to be dependent on their defense. And their defense in recent years has been pretty good on paper. But unfortunately for them, a lot of injuries have occurred. The big one, obviously, that comes to mind is Rashawn Gary. This is a player that has bundles of potential, but just hasn't been able to stay on the field. Unfortunately for him, and unfortunately for the Packers. And then the other one, Jaire Alexander, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Fast track back a couple of years ago, he was top 2, top 3 cornerback. And now, sort of, because he's missed some time, he's sort of dropped down the ranks a bit. But he's obviously a quality player still, just missed some games, unfortunately. And so really the Packers have been sort of scrambling, particularly for defensive pieces to sort of step up. A lot of the cornerbacks in that room have had to been thrust into the limelight, and then obviously on the line as well. But a key player for them that I think will step up in his rookie year is Lucas Van Ness. I think it was a great pickup. I think it was 14th, maybe 13th in the draft last season. Can't quite remember off the top of my head, but it was obviously in the teens, that pick. And I think he'll be a great pickup. He's nicknamed Hercules, and you take one look at him and you understand why, because he just looks like that perfect figure. I don't know where I'm going with this. What? He's nicknamed Hercules. But basically, he can be a run stopper, a man mountain sort of off that edge, not a traditional sort of. He's not going to be that quick, that fast twitch, quick player off the edge. He's going to be a great run stopper, a great person to sort of set the edge, and a big player on this defense for the Green Bay Packers going into this season. And so, as I already mentioned, my prediction for their record is an 8-9 season. Obviously, a lot of changes to this team, but I think a very similar season in terms of the record and finishing third in this division. And so in second place, it's the Minnesota Vikings, which means my team to win this division is the Detroit Lions, which we'll obviously get to after the Vikings. But for me, the Vikings are going to sort of come back down to earth a bit. Last season, obviously, phenomenal year. The record that they had, 13 wins. A number of those wins were just unbelievable to watch. Obviously, the Indy game, that comeback, biggest comeback in NFL history. They had some great times. Justin Jefferson catch versus the Bills. It was unreal, but I think it will come. They'll be coming back down to earth this season. And a big reason for this is actually when you look at last season, the amount of games they won within one score, and you can look at it sort of two sides that way. On one side, you can say, well, they were clutch. They lived up to that moment. They were able to produce when it mattered, when the pressure was at its highest. But on the other side, I think a lot of it's to do with the defense. The defense giving up a lot of points when they maybe shouldn't. And I don't necessarily think some of the additions and just the defense in general that they have, I don't think it's good enough to be a top tier team. On the other side though, the offense, don't get me wrong, this is a great offense. Kirk Cousins, pretty much, you know what you're getting with him. He's been in the league for years now, and you understand what you're going to get with Kirk Cousins. And big respect to him. If you haven't watched the quarterback show on Netflix, go watch it because it's unbelievable. So much respect for Kirk Cousins after watching that. But in terms of the other offensive pieces, we don't even need to talk about JJ. Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the NFL right now, and in for another big year. And then in the addition of Jordan Addison, the rookie, he could be a great player for them. Potential offensive rookie of the year as well. Obviously, Thielen going to the Panthers, meaning there's catches up for grabs there. And then the running back room. Dalvin Cook, of course, is now not in Minnesota. He's a New York Jet, which means Madison has been very, very good when Dalvin Cook was unable to play in the previous years. His yards per carry haven't necessarily looked great across his career, but he's produced when it needed. And he's not necessarily going to be the same player as Dalvin Cook, but I think as a running back, as an RB1, Alexander Madison is going to be very solid, if not even better. So as I said, I think it's just going to be a real high-powered offense, and the defense is going to sort of struggle to keep teams at bay this season, which is why I've got them with a 10-win season. coming back down from 13. I think, as I said, last season, a lot of those games, very close victories. I can't remember how many it was, but it might have honestly been double-digit victories, under 7 points or 6 points, something like that. I can't remember the exact stat, but it was nuts. The amount of close games that they were able to win, you just can't see it happening again. So 10-win season for the Vikings and a second place finish in the division. And so, of course, as mentioned before, the Detroit Lions are going to win this division as my prediction. There's a lot of hype around the Detroit Lions, and I think rightfully so. They've really drafted well and grabbed assets quite well through trades and whatnot, but particularly the draft. The last couple of seasons, they've built on both sides of the ball, and I think they're set up to win this division and have a really, really good season, making the playoffs and making a splash. Now, the biggest reason for me is one of my favorite players in the league, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he is underrated still. I think he's a top receiver, and this year he will show just about everyone why. I think it'll be undeniable by the end of the season for people that this is a top receiver. Taken in the 4th round. I think by now we've all seen that clip of him listing off all the receivers taken before him and the colleges that they went to. This guy's mindset is unbelievable, and I absolutely love him. That's a big reason why, but there are also others, of course. This offensive line I don't think is talked about nearly enough. It's probably one of the best in football, and it doesn't seem to get mentioned in that ilk. Penei Sewell, obviously a draft pick taken a couple of years ago. He's the main man on this offensive line. He's the biggest name, I'd say, and a big rock to protect Jared Goff, who admittedly not the best quarterback going around, but very, very capable. And there's a stat that's hanging out there. The last 7 of the last 8 games Detroit are playing in domes, and Jared Goff's stats in domes are far and away a lot better. His performances in domes are superb. So keep an eye on the last 7 of 8 games during the season. Then on the defense, they just seem to find players, not necessarily always round 1 picks, although Aiden Hutchinson, great rookie season, primed for another good season here. Obviously the big one, the big name. But they seem to find guys that are not necessarily high picks or maybe high profile trades. They seem to find guys that just do a job. But at the same time, the defense was a big reason why the Lions left it so late last season. They obviously had a fantastic run at the end of last season to almost jump into playoffs. They ultimately didn't because of that sort of start. The amount of points the defense was giving up. But I think it will be an improved defense, and it will need to be for them to have this good of a season. And that takes me to the record. How good of a season will it be for the Lions? I think it will be a Vikings-like season. They will get 13 wins this year. I think it will be massive. Obviously, a slightly easier schedule compared to a lot of teams in the NFL. The NFC compared to the AFC is just an easier conference. And I think they'll do very well in this division as well. So big season coming up for the Detroit Lions. I'm going big with 13 wins. I think that maybe that's a bit too much for people, but I'm very high on the Lions this season, and for good reason, I think. But that is it for this predictions video for the NFC North. Let me know what you think about my predictions, and give me yours in the comments below as well. I love hearing from you guys in terms of these prediction videos, what you guys think. Who's going to win this division, who's going to be a surprise package, and why I'm wrong, all that good stuff. So if you did enjoy this video, please like, please subscribe if you've been watching these videos and want to see more, because I've got plenty more coming. I've got to finish off the other divisions as well. I might not get there before the season starts later this week, but I will do one for each division, and then we'll be good to go. So yeah, if you did like this video, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.